Glad you could grab the signal again. Our AI, Olivia, tells us that as long as the time dilation remains constant, we should be able to get a good bounce and get you a signal on a regular basis. Last week we talked about how sometimes in an apocalypse, a librarian might not look exactly like a librarian, and at times we might have to modify our understanding of the transactions that happen between a librarian and a patron. In this week's transmission, I'd like to talk a little bit about what it might look like if you do have some resources. Every day, librarians and libraries have to make choices about resources that they have. Most libraries are funded because of a social contract that says libraries are good, and the society says we want to have that library. But they aren't unlimited funds, so a library has to often choose between things like personnel development and collection development, or facility maintenance, or whatever crazy thing comes up. Somebody broke 10 chairs. All of these things go into managing a modern day library day in and day out. In an apocalypse, those choices are going to be magnified, and they should be fun to look at. So, let's talk about a few things first. So, you found yourself in an apocalypse. You're a librarian, and you're going to have to start asking some questions. Let's start by assessing what sort of resources we have and how we're going to have to define them. Starting with, is there a collection? If there's a collection, what state is it in? Is it mostly in disrepair? Is it cataloged? Is it organized in some sort of way that makes it easy to access? Or is that something you're going to have to do? What is its purpose? Either now or what you envision it to become. And last but not least, do you need it to be mobile? Are you being chased by zombies or radioactive mutants? Whatever. Do you need to be able to pack it up and be on the move with this library? Which segues into the next question or assessment. Is there a facility? And does the facility itself pose a risk of loss to the collection? Is it in poor repair? Is it in the middle of a war zone? Is it in a safe location? Are there unethical arrangements that have been made to keep this facility? And there can be a wide range of these I can think of. Is there a despotic warlord that rules the town? Or have you perhaps made a deal with some future Nazi government to keep a library open? Now, there's a lot of these. Are there human resources? Do you have people other than you who are librarians or who can go out and seek books to add to your library? Do you have help? And is that help proficient? Are you going to have to train these people yourself? And is that a time commitment that will take away from a more important duty? But there's two big ones here that we need to ask ourselves, and they will put all of the other ones in perspective. Are there patrons? Is there a reason for this library even to exist? Are there people who are going to come here and request information? Do you need to communicate the value of a library to a group of people to turn them into patrons? And do they need to learn how to use a library? Can they be trained as librarians to help? These are all great questions that you might want to ask about your available human resources. And last, but definitely not least, who is the man? Who is in charge? And what is the social environment? Is there some sort of person that you are going to have to make arrangements with about the content of your library? Are you going to have to delete all religious text? Or are you going to have to delete all history text or all science text? Are there going to be some sort of ethical arrangements that you have to make with this new social environment to keep your library a library? I know we just covered a whole bunch, and we're going to come back in future videos and talk about a lot of these and explain them further and in depth and look at more in-depth specific examples of each of these cases. But I want to get on to this week's example. We're going to talk about Logan's Run. And specifically, I'm talking about the 1976 Michael Anderson movie and not the 1967 Michael Nolan novel. And only because Michael Anderson took some liberties with the movie that actually adds the pertinent element that I want to talk about. Fair warning here, this is going to contain some spoilers. So if you have not seen this 50-year-old movie, yeah. So if you don't want it to be spoiled, stop here. But really, get out there and live. So, at the end of Logan's Run, two people have escaped from a society that has force-managed the population. At a certain age, you must commit suicide, ritual suicide. This is part of the society, and it is enforced by a police force called Sandmen. One of these Sandmen, Logan 5, and his love interest, Jessica 6, managed to escape this encapsulated society and find out that there is an outside world that has been completely destroyed by an apocalypse. The first person they find is something they have never seen, an old person. In this case, Peter Ustinov, who deserved an Oscar for this role. An old man hanging out in the remains of the Library of Congress with about 85 cats, and he's quoting T.S. Eliot's The Naming of Cats. Ultimately, at the end of the movie, everyone from this encapsulated society gets released. Then all of a sudden, Peter Ustinov's character, the Librarian, has thousands of patrons, from just himself for all of his life to literally thousands of patrons. So, what state is his collection in, realistically? I mean, has it been managed in a way that is well organized? Or has he created doom piles of T.S. Eliot books? But maybe even superseding that is, do these people even know what a library is? They've lived in an encapsulated society that's been meticulously organized by an AI. They've never even seen books. So how much time is he going to have to invest in even teaching people the value of a library, much less how to use and organize and maintain one? But here's the crux of the problem. He's old and only has a limited amount of time. So what do you do first? Before you jump to the knee-jerk answer of, well, I train one person and then have them train the next person and so on, there's an immediate need here also, in that all of a sudden you've taken, I don't know how many people live in the city, but it appears to be 20,000 people, and inflicted them on the local surroundings with no ability to care for themselves, no understanding of how to feed themselves, no understanding how to build a shelter, or any of these basic survival skills. So, Let's consider again the importance of a library. Does it supersede or can it aid in these immediate needs, and how? And of course, I've got a great example for you. If you haven't seen this video, and judging by his views count, many of you probably have, you need to go to Luke Humphrey's YouTube channel. All of his stuff is fantastic, and his end of the world, end of civilization things are very cozy, and they often take the best case possible scenarios. There is one particular video that I'd like to call your attention to, and it's called Mangoes, Manuals, and Media. And I'll have the link posted below. In this video, librarians have a plan for the end of civilization. They begin to get frequent requests on the same subjects like health and hygiene, and gardening, and hunting and fishing, and how to build structures. So they start to put together manuals from their collection, easy to use, easy to read manuals on these subjects that they can provide to people who need the information to survive. In addition, they form a library of things that people may need, like tools or survival gear or home repair equipment. But they don't stop there, and they start to assemble seed packets and starter gardens for people who need them to survive. And even when they're out scouting and looking for new additions to the collection, they're not only planting knowledge seeds, they're planting literal seeds. So, this is kind of an idealized environment. These librarians obviously aren't facing pressures from zombies or radioactive mutants or super evil AI or any of those things. And they do have some resources, and they're doing a pretty good job of setting a really good goal for any apocalypse librarian in any apocalypse. As long as the particulars of the initial questions we asked in this transmission are possible and make sense, this is the goal. Olivia tells me our transmission window is coming to an end, so I will catch you on the next bounce, where we'll talk a little bit about information and information fluidity. Be safe.
Bring out your dad.